Howdy all, grab yourselves a beer, it's time to play some Path of Exile. With the new Synthesis League comes a new economy, and with a new economy comes a new delve mine. This means that basically all your progress from the previous leagues, at least assuming that you're playing in the new league, is gone and it's a fresh start. Now, a lot of people complain that this means that they need to sort of rebuild all of their mine again, and that it sort of costs a lot of currency in order to get sulphite to delve deep. I believe that's wrong, and I wanted to show just an example of my level 83 character going and doing some tier 2 equivalent maps delves, just to show you how quickly you zoom through getting currency and XP and how little it costs you to do so. I'm not actually doing proper low-level farming at the moment. I've made a previous video on that, and there's plenty of other ones about it. But basically, all I'm doing is I'm just going through to the objectives. And my key goals at the moment, I want to pick up any good reward nodes that I come across, but I also need to pick up a lot of azurite. Azurite's essential in order to get your darkness resistance up to a point that you can really go off into the darkness for extended periods, to build up your flares, duration, and the radius that they have on them. But one of the things you'll notice here, because this is a tier 2 map equivalent delve, the monsters themselves are pretty easy. That doesn't mean there's not some nasty surprises. Some of the the on-death explosions here are reasonably lethal, and I think the delve mines in general were designed at a period that the character power level was much higher than it was when the Atlas of Worlds was designed, and so as a result some of the monsters do nastier things to you, and I think they just have higher stats than they would have if they were created 3 years ago. But that's a quick delve. That was really fast. That was a 2 square delve. It cost me almost no sulphite, and I picked up a 6 socket item, nothing particularly memorable, but boom, straight into the next one. Character that I'm playing is a cold damage over time occultist. Occultist has absolutely tremendous defenses with energy shield. You have the Wicked Ward and the preceding node, which grant you between them 250 energy shield, a little bit of passive energy shield regen, but most importantly, every time you kill a monster, you get 4 seconds of 1% energy shield recharge after that. Now that stacks with itself without any apparent limit. So you'll see this buff up here, Vile Bastion, is regularly higher than 10. This means that I'm recovering 10% of my maximum energy shield every second. The thing with the delve mines that makes that so explosively powerful is the fact that in the delve mines there are a lot of really low power monsters, and they're extremely close to each other. So I'm just going to keep going through. I mentioned earlier my darkness resistance, and even for that matter my flare quantity, my flare capacity and the like, are not yet at a point where I want to go off into the darkness for the fossils that you can loot there, which are the main loot that you'll get here. But you'll see that in this time I've already picked up a couple of Chaos Orbs, a 7 Jewelers item, a 7 Jewelers worth of 6 socket item, and there's also a Sacrifice Fragment, and there's a potential to get bigger pulls as well. You won't get, in my experience, you won't get Divine, Exalt, Annulment tier currencies in the mines much at all. Firstly, they're mostly behind the Fractured Walls, and even there, they're rarer than they are in mapping. In my experience, but the lower tier currencies, the Chaos Orbs, the Regals, the Regrets, the Scours, the Alchemy Orbs, they're everywhere. The other thing that you'll get as you start getting deeper into the mines, and this is something that you really need to be ahead of the curve on to benefit from, but if you can get to the point that you're in tier 7 equivalent maps in the mines, you'll be able to sell maps at the moment. This is day 2 of the league. At the time I'm recording this, Synthesis has been live for 36.5 hours, and so for that reason maps are still very expensive. I covered in my 2 videos on League Start economics and how you can exploit them. I covered how you can make yourself a lot of currency by exploiting that. I've gone up to tier 3 equivalent maps here. Still very easy monsters. I generally feel like I'm at a character power level where I could run about tier 10 maps now. And while the delve mechanics and the need for speed associated with it do make this harder than a tier 3 map would be, the synergy between occultist and massive packs of dying monsters is pretty much extraordinary, and means that I've just got so much regeneration that I just don't really care. So I'll finish off this encounter. You'll notice I've gone to a dead end. I'm wanting to progress my mines downward, and that's my goal at the moment, but you don't get enough azurite for everything that you want to buy early on unless you do actually go a little bit out of your way to pick up the better azurite nodes. So there we go, that's another couple of hundred. The absolute priorities for upgrading are, if you're intending to mostly level your character through mapping, your first priority should be getting your capacity for sulphite up as quickly as you can. You'll see here that I've got 4500 sulphite capacity, and my next upgrade will take that to 6400. That's on my list of things to get. The other thing that you want is you want to get your darkness resistance to 75% at the level you're at. That's the cap. So the next upgrade that I can get will take me to 75. But each level down in the delve mines that you go will decrease this by 2%, I believe. And so that will mean that you'll need to keep feeding more and more into this upgrade. Light radius is similar. Each level that you go down will decrease it by 2%, and each upgrade will increase it by 30%. It caps at 150%, and getting it to 150% and keeping it there is really, really valuable. From a flare's perspective, having flare radius higher than I've got at the moment, having it over 100% is really important, and you'll see that the next upgrade is going to be quite expensive. The more flares you can carry, the better, and I'm going to pick up the next couple of them, and I'm just now at a point where diminishing returns is really kicking in. The next upgrades start to cost a bit more. Flare duration, yet pick it up when you can. It's not as critical, but it does help a lot. For dynamite, you want to have 3 of them early on, but these only help you when you start hunting fractured walls, which you can do all along. I just generally don't bother going for them unless they're visible from the path, or I'm pretty sure they're in a specific spot. So I'm going to keep on delving and burn through this 4000 sulphite that I've got left, and then I'm going to upgrade the capacity a couple more times. And all of the time, I'm just going to keep coming out every few delves, sell off the garbage that I get that vendors want or that has some potential. Even early league, that 2-stone ring is garbage, so I'm just going to vendor it. And I'll go and bank the currency that I got. I burnt 500 sulphite in that. 2 chaos, that's 2.5 chaos. That's nothing, that's 3 chaos, that's about 4. All told, that's about 4 plus this sacrifice at noon. This early in a league, that's probably 2, so I think I've got about 6 chaos there. That's only burning 500 sulphite, and it's worth noting that even if this was later in the league, so if we didn't have the unusual economy of the very start of a league, where maps are scarce and where the currency to make great items doesn't yet exist in the league, and so things like exalted orbs and annulment orbs that are only used for making great items are at much lower values than they'll be later on. Even in that situation, that still would have been 5 chaos in a mature league for using 500 sulphite, and that actually felt to be a disappointing amount. You also get a staggering amount of XP, and look, it's only showing 93 million XP per hour. I think it's probably higher than that at level 83, and that's with me being a full 13 levels higher than the monsters. So yeah, definitely give delving a go. Each time that you encounter Nico in a tier 5 map, you seem to be getting about, assuming that you've alchemy orbed the map and done nothing else to it, you seem to be getting between 1200 and 1500 sulphite. So that gives you, at tier 2 map, that gives you about 12 of these short jaunts, or these longer jaunts will cost about 175 for a 2 square jaunt, and a 3 square jaunt like this one, which goes through 1, 2, oh sorry, that's a 4 square jaunt there, that'll cost about 325 at this depth. That does go up very quickly the deeper that you get in the mines, but even as you do start getting deeper, the cost doesn't really become a cramp on your ability to delve until you get to about tier 10 delves, so that's monster level 77 or so. And the key thing that makes this work is that when you're delving, you're usually a bit behind the tiers that you're mapping in. So I'm doing tier 2 and tier 3 delves at the moment, whereas in maps I'm starting to push out to tier 6 maps. So generally speaking, the maps I'm doing are 4 tiers above the delves, and so the amount of sulphite that I'm getting is quite a bit more than the amount that I need to use for delving. You'll notice that this will be the case, as I say, until you get to about tier 9 or tier 10 map equivalent delves, and at that point the gap, the sulphite usage and also sulphite gains in maps don't scale as fast, so you will stop being able, you will no longer get say 6 to 12 2-step jaunts worth of delve juice from a single map that's 4 tiers higher than where you're delving. It'll be more 3 to 4 of those 3 to 4 square delve jaunts that you'll get, and so your progress will be slower. But even then, Nico pops up in 8% of your maps, and 4% of the time that you kill a map boss, Nico will also spawn somewhere on the atlas close to the current level, close to the map level you were just in. So definitely give delving a go. It's been very lucrative for me, and I'm just going to keep jumping back in and keep demonstrating this. The deeper that you get, the more dangerous it'll become, of course. I'm using dumpster tier gear, as pretty much everyone in the league is using at the moment. You'll notice that I'm Chaos Inoculation with less than 7,000 energy shield, and that is whilst using Discipline. I think I'm using only one piece of energy shield gear that feels good. My boots are only providing me 5 energy shield, and actually it's something that I got very early in the leveling process that I just never got around to replacing. My chest armor was just as simple as finding a 6 socket, not 6 link, 6 socket Val Regalia in a map, using a transmutation orb, and then rolling a single decent energy shield mod, then using a augmentation to stick a second mod on it, which I think was a resist, and then I threw a regal on it, got the chaos resistance, which does nothing for me now, and then, but the reason that I used the regal wasn't so much for the 3rd mod, it was for the ability to then add a 4th mod via master crafting. I then added that 39 flat energy shield craft, which then means that the item gives me almost 400 energy shield base, which then gets modified by my tree. It's nothing stellar, but it's serviceable. These are a solid pull. These are the one pull that I've had that was a genuinely good drop, but all the rest of my energy shield gear is very budget. And you'll see here, I'm using a helmet that I really should. I don't know why I haven't replaced this yet. I picked it up in Act 8, I think, and would have just found a 4 blue Solaris circuit on the ground somewhere in Act 8 and gone, I'm going to throw an alchemy orb on that, and that's all I'm doing. Yeah, this shield is better, but it's nothing amazing. These boots are absolute rubbish, especially given that the cold resistance and the life on them do nothing for me. These are something that I have been using since about Act 3. So yeah, that's me going and delving with terrible gear and running through and getting pretty good loot for it. Strongly recommend giving this a go. The first few delves will feel boring because you'll be forced to stick next to the cart. Your cart you won't have the darkness resistance or light radius to go far away from your cart. But once you push through that, once you power through those early ones, you'll find that it's very rewarding. It's extremely high XP, and it's actually a lot of fun. Anyways, have fun in the Synthesis League.